3, 2, 1. Should be good. Come through on Facebook. Perfect. Check the audios quick. Connection's good. Perfect. It's not too bad out here usually, but let's check the audios. Should be good. We can get this cracked open now. Oh, trail cam pictures popping up. Oops. But yeah, so, all right. So get on Facebook. Check the audio. Yep, we're all set there. And YouTube. All set. YouTube side. Perfect. So welcome back everybody to 100 Proof Whitetails. I got a guest down here at the bar tonight, Tim Kent from Whitetail Property stopping by. And this is actually the first time we've met. So
yeah,
we're a little late getting to it because we've just been jawing for the last 20 minutes. So but yeah, so thanks Tim for coming out. Really appreciate it. And yeah, tell the folks a little bit about you, your background, where you're from, all that good stuff, and wherever you want to start and unpack it. Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Jersey, of all places. I actually grew up in the northwest corner, which is actually pretty rural. And it's funny because when you tell people about New Jersey, it's just like New York. You're like, oh, wow, I can't believe you're from there. And it's like, no, not where I'm from. And it's the same thing that we experience here, right, in the Finger Lakes where we are. And so I moved up here to go to college. I went to RIT. And I had no intention of staying here. It was just, I wanted to move out west.
Gotcha.
And about 3 months before I graduated from school, maybe even 2, I met my wife, and I was like, oh, I like her. I'll hang out for a little while. And here we are, 23 years later, still hanging around.
Yep.
Couple kids, couple houses,
yep.
Bunch of dirt, whatever later, dogs, cats, kids.
You name it.
Got it all. And so, yeah, what we talked about earlier, started my career in the hunting industry in marketing. Started out just doing freelance work here and there, photography and graphic design and that type of thing. And then that manifested into growing an ad agency, and then worked for a bunch of different manufacturers over the years, lots of different manufacturers. And then through those relationships, I ended up becoming acquainted with Whitetail Properties, and that sort of materialized into eventually having an opportunity to work with them when they opened up here in New York. And I was fortunate enough to get a territory and work in the region, and sort of fit because I knew the area and everything else, hunted the area, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty exciting. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're also in the territory with your wife.
Yep.
You guys are both ages.
Yep. She's my partner in the business. It had gotten busy enough where I needed to grab an extra set of hands. And the way I looked at it was, I can grab somebody and, I can do them. She was looking for a career change and was interested in real estate. We were both always interested in real estate. I kind of worked on some stuff throughout my career from the marketing side. And I was like, geez, there's nobody I trust more. And, if we could work together, I know she's going to be helpful. And I know her work ethic, and there's going to be no surprises. And like I said, she was looking for a career change. So we lined that up, and she's done great. It's perfect. It's been good. And I think there's some element of all of that where there are certain people that would really prefer to work with a woman, and there are certain people that would really prefer to work with a man. And now we have that combination, and it's worked out really, really well for us. And what's cool is when we meet some people who really don't mind, and they're a husband and wife, and they seem to really interact with us well.
Like the team feel,
Yeah, they like that. I mean, we have a couple clients that we still are friendly with and go to dinner and do that kind of stuff because we've just created that bond. And I think if it was just me as an individual or her as an individual, probably wouldn't have had that opportunity. So it's cool. And she's not a hunter or anything like me. She likes to fish and camp and everything else, but she's just gotten really into it. She's a QDMA or NDA, I should say now. Deer Steward 1, Deer Steward 2. She's, she could walk onto a piece of ground and, peel off trees.
Start picking it apart.
Hey, man, it'd be cool to put a food plot here, and I would do some screening so you can't see this from the road. And when you're talking to deer hunters, they just kind of look at her and they're like, she's like, oh, and I don't even hunt. But my husband's crazy, so. It's
she's like, I picked up a thing or two.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So. And that's a lot of the thing too that, working in the, the real estate side of it too. And I tell people a lot of times, you don't really compete necessarily. You work with other companies on
Oh yeah.
usually on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
With buying and selling pieces. So, it's something to have good relationships and working with other individuals and stuff like that. And that's why I thought it'd be a good fit to bring you on. We've talked before about a couple pieces for even, bouncing stuff off for comparables for pieces that you were looking at in specific areas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and that's a lot more that I thought before, when I started getting into it. There's a lot more working with other agencies and other brokerages
yeah.
than I thought it was ever. I just thought you listed it and you sold it, and that was kind of it.
Well, and I think the thing that, like, as an agent and as a professional, you always have to look at is you're in servitude to your client.
Oh yeah.
And so as a result, you have to have these interpersonal relationships with other agencies, other brokerages, other agents, because you want everything to work. If you have adversarial relationships, it's not helping your client.
No.
And so, as somebody who's always had that mindset and whatever else, it totally makes sense. Like, yeah, I want to have relationships with the folks at Howard Hanna or LandQuest, or you guys at Future Forestry. Like, I want to work with everybody. I want to have positive relationships with everybody, because a rising tide raises all ships.
Yep.
And I just want to see values in New York stay stable and stay up. And I want to see ground transaction. I want to see guys shoot big deer, or people come in and be able to put together a hobby farm if that's what they're into, or just execute on their dream. And if I have a bad relationship with someone who really I should be looking at as my partner, I'm not helping those people execute on their dream, whether it's buying or selling.
So. And that's the thing with, your net only gets so big, with one company or whatever with it too. So, I mean, there's times that, I've showed pieces that I've listed or, my brokerage has listed, but most of the time it's showing pieces that other brokerages have listed because that fits what the client's looking for. And that's our job, is to go out and find it for them. So.
And from the listing side, you can't have it all.
No.
I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much you market or how busy you are. Like, your personality is not going to jive with every seller, or, there's just going to be a hometown hero. We got lots of hometown heroes here, and like, there's always that other person that's going to have a leg up on you. And the sooner you kind of realize that, I think the better your position is going to be. You still got to go and hustle and do everything else, but you can't have it all. And I don't want it all. I don't want to have all those headaches and everything else.
Well, there's good and there's bad with any amount of transactions. If you've been in real estate long enough, you'll realize that there's stuff that goes smooth as silk, and those are kind of few and far between sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you tell me where those smooth as silk deals are? Because I don't seem to find those very often.
It's very, very rarely it seems to be, especially in an area like this. And I think we talked about it. We've talked numerous times on the phone and stuff. Historically, kind of in this area, stuff doesn't hit market.
Right.
It's a lot of transactional between, neighbors or, people in the same town, whatever it might be, especially when it comes to farm ground or, recreational ground, that kind of stuff. So it's a little tricky and tough looking at that market too.
Sure.
Whereas historically, like I said, I mean, we bought our piece off market, and most of the stuff around us has been sold off market. I think only one parcel surrounding our piece was sold on market.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep. Right where we are right now. I have a friend who's a big farmer here, and I know he tells me every time he buys a piece in, like, all their transactions, it's just one farmer going to the other and just saying, hey, I'm thinking about getting out of this piece. Is it something that you're interested in? And they have that dialogue together, and that's it. And that's fine. Yeah. Again, you can't have it all.
Oh yeah, no, and
I use all of that information to help me with the people that do call. And so, some people might think like, oh, I dislike that, they're not using us. Well, the fact of the matter is, a lot of times farmers and those folks, they don't trust real estate agents.
Well, and it's cleaner.
And
for them in some cases,
or do any of that type of stuff. But then there's others that realize if we take it to auction or we sell it directly for them, we might be able to get them a higher dollar amount than they would doing a private transaction. Because, in my experience, and I don't know what yours is, a lot of times, especially on just a rec piece, the neighbor's going to be the one that probably offers you the least amount of money.
It can, in a lot of cases it can be, So, and again, it's, looking with the farming side of stuff, it makes sense, and that's where we are. We're in a very heavy ag area. Makes sense that a next door neighbor farmer is going to buy it because the farmer on the other side of the county isn't going to haul his equipment over there to farm another 100 acres. So it makes sense in a lot of cases for that, but it's getting to the point now where some of these other bigger farmers, more Mennonite community, are starting to seek out, and I have a few that I'm looking for, big block pieces and sending out mailers and stuff like that, trying to find them pieces, locally or whatever, and it's tough, but again, a lot of them are looking to start small and then build from that into a neighborhood kind of thing. So, but yeah, and that's where, relationships like that Woods and Water event that's coming up, I'll be at that. I won't have a table set up. I got too much stuff going on. I'm too darn busy, but I'm offering to do a seminar and stuff for them.
Yeah.
And I'm going down Friday to see Tony LaPratte speak, because he's coming into town on Friday for that. And I'm sure I'll run into LandQuest guys, like you said. I'll just shaking hands, talking to everybody.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, that's going back to my experience in the hunting industry. I primarily worked on the archery side, and I'd be working for one brand, and I'd still know many of the other brands in that same category. And we'd, catch up at the bar at night or walk past, tables and see one another at trade shows and everything else. And it was always friendly.
Yeah.
It was because you just never know. And there might be a point where you might want to borrow somebody's patent and use something, but they might have, you might have IP that they wanted to utilize. And, there was always a lot of, well, I'll give you this if you do that. A little bit of thing. Just give, take. It's just like any other relationship that we all get involved in. There's a lot of give, take in that space. And, again, I see the same thing doing this and the time that I've been doing it. It's just, you're way better off just, again, trying to massage and cultivate all those relationships. So, yeah, then that's cool, because I'm my whole thing. It's the only thing I'm really good at is building a network.
Right, absolutely.
And, it's just like, I like doing that. I like knowing people. I like, being able to help people. I like people being able to help me too. It's a great two-way street. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and this Breckenridge has been staring at me. Tim actually came with one that I didn't have on the bar, which he said he was having a little anxiety.
I was sweating sweating in the store. I'm like, oh man, I'm as intimidated by all this.
No, it's something that, like I said, it's taken obviously years or whatever to accumulate, but it's something that I tied it in because I enjoyed doing this, loved doing this. Actually, like we were talking before this, when I was down in Louisville is where I started drinking, more bourbon. I mean, there was always, Evan Williams in college or Jack Daniels or whatever, but when we was down in Louisville, man, you go down to the bar and it's just anything you can think of.
Yeah.
And we're down there and these guys are drinking this or drinking that, and it's like, oh wow, I'm not slamming shots. I'm starting to drink it on the rocks back then, and now it's more neat. Some stuff on the rocks, but kind of just depends on the bourbon or the whiskey that I'm drinking. But yeah, that's, I think, probably where it started for me, is pushing me toward that whiskey direction, and kind of found that collaboration with QDMA and the hunting side of it coming together, and it just fit. And that's kind of where we came up with the idea of the show, and because that's what we were. We were just sitting down here talking one night, being Nate that does the show with me, and he's like, man, we were just listening to like a podcast in the background or whatever, and we're just like, dude, we should just do this.
Yeah.
And answer questions when they come in, more toward deer season and stuff, obviously, but it's starting to ramp back up, starting to get people asking questions, people commenting in on stuff. Yeah, and a lot of it even on the bourbon side, which I wasn't expecting that to be the, looking for suggestions, or like, what do you think of this bottle or that bottle, or, have you found one of these? Can you find me one of these? And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
We could talk. I'd rather talk deer, but I'll sit down and have a bourbon anytime.
Well, you did the perfect thing. You combined the two together, right? It's just like hunting camp, but on a smaller, more, hour-long scale.
Yeah. And we've had folks in with, from, local people that do like youth turkey hunts and stuff, doing turkey season stuff. It's spread right out. My buddy from Idaho was in town for my birthday, so we did a thing talking about all the hatchery stuff he does out in Idaho and the fishy spawns and all that stuff. So just kind of branching it. It doesn't have to just be deer and bourbon. It can be rum or vodka, or we're drinking beer one night, or whatever it is. We're just hanging out like we'd be hanging out at the bar.
Yeah.
And just, there's a camera rolling, but we're not even looking at the camera. We're just talking.
Right, exactly.
So, and that's more organic, I think, and, get better conversation out of it.
No doubt.
But, well, I'll let you pop it. You're the one that brought it.
Oh, boy.
You can pop it and pour it. I'll check some comments, see if we got anything rolling in. A bunch of likes rolling in, comments rolling in. No comments rolling in. So yeah. So.
How much do you want?
Just
4?
a finger or two would be fine.
Oh. Give you 1.5.
That'll work. That'll work. But yeah. So. Perfect.
Sweet.
Well, thank you.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Yep. I haven't had that one in a while. It's as good as I remember.
Solid.
It's just smooth.
Easy going.
Yeah.
Not hard at all.
No.
90. 86. Gotcha. Yeah, Breckenridge was actually one that was commented in from somebody a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where, I'm not buying many bottles anymore. I don't need to.
Just gotta have more guests that bring
stuff
to you. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got a bunch for my birthday and other stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I have a hard time. I never finish bottles is my problem.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm feeling this one tonight, or this one this week, or whatever. And like we were talking before we started with it, is once you start figuring out what flavor you like and stuff like that, and that's why I like folks coming down here. It's like have, one or two that you want to try or try it before you buy it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and some of them like them so much, I'll send the bottle home with them. Because
Right.
maybe it's one that I'm not really digging on or whatever, and if they enjoy it, you can take it home.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, and that's where I've kind of found like 8 or 10 that I really like. My one buddy Keith that comes down does more of the whiskey kind of side of stuff with me.
Yeah.
We're starting to break down. We're going to do a bracket this year for our best bottles that we've had for the year.
Yeah.
And blind them like we do with all of it, and start breaking them down to go, what's going to be the best bottle for the year that we've had. So, and it's all blind and all blind drawn. So, and we got $20 bottles in there, and we got
I know
all sorts of different stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for any price point, availability, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But once you find what you like, I'd say just stay in that lane. I mean, you can try other stuff, but I always go back, like you said, I love Russells, and you see, I mean, I got store picks of them, single barrels of them. They're most of the top shelf.
Yep.
But
yeah,
it's
I could rattle on about a bunch of this stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just whiskey,
Yep.
rye,
Yep.
bourbon.
Mhm.
I even like Scotch. I know a lot of guys don't like Scotch.
I got a
But
few
it's only
scotches
some
kicking.
Scotch.
Yeah.
Because there's some Scotch. It's like, whew, that's
The
rough.
peat stuff.
Yeah, it's not even that it's just peaty. It's like my buddy describes it as like, I feel like I just chewed on a Band-Aid, because it's like medical. And,
yeah, you can get that.
It's just got that like straight kind of rubbing alcohol almost type of flavor.
It can,
Not that I've ever drank rubbing alcohol,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
The raw
so
alcohol
raw
kind.
alcohol, yeah. And then
Mhm.
you add in that peaty flavor, and a lot of people don't dig that. I
Yep.
mean, there's one that I really like. It's called Highland Park.
Mhm.
And I was at my neighbor's house. They were having a party, and I brought over a bottle that didn't have a ton in it, and then I was just trying to contribute.
Yeah, right.
And everybody was hitting that bottle. I mean, should I say it didn't have a ton? It was probably half full.
Yep.
And everybody hammered that bottle. So he's like, oh, hey, we have this Highland Park. I'd never had it before.
Yeah.
It was smoky, but it didn't have that crazy peaty flavor.
Mhm.
It's hard for me to even describe, but it was so good. And
Yeah.
I overindulged.
Yeah.
Just never happened.
When you get good bottles, you
Yeah.
tend to have another one or two. Yeah.
And I felt it for probably 3 days, my overindulgence. And
Yep.
but I, once I healed,
Yep.
I went out and I bought a bottle of that, and
Mhm.
I've since gone through it, and I have another one. I was actually gonna bring that just to mess around with it.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know if he does Scotch or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I'm got a few scotches kicking
Yeah.
around. Not as many. I kind of stay in that bourbon lane. It kind of is more my lane. There are some ryes and, like you said, some other stuff too. There's even just straight mellow corn liquor.
yeah, I've never had that.
Not a lot of people have.
Nope.
But that was
It's a
one.
very fancy bottle.
Oh yeah, plastic yellow screw top, fitting with being mellow corn.
Yeah.
But
Waterproof.
yep, bottled and bond corn whiskey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I got a monkey shoulder, one Morrigy, and there's another one kicking around here somewhere. A couple Irish whiskeys, a couple Jamesons and stuff kicking around in there.
Yeah, Redbreast is my
Redbreast. I've heard a lot of things about Redbreast.
Yep, that was sort of my graduation from sort of crummy whiskey to good stuff. And I remember when I first had that, same friend that I was talking about with the chewing on a Band-Aid, he introduced me to it, and he and his wife, and I was like, this is whiskey? Because before that, I was just a poor college kid drinking Seagram's 7, you know what I mean? It's just
7-7s?
Yeah, man, that was the only way I could choke them down.
Yep.
If you told me we had to drink that neat, I'd be like, dude.
I mean, I got the Crown if we're going Canadian or whatever with it, but I mean, But no, it's yeah. But no, I mean, like I said, you don't have to go out and spend $100 or chase, like you said, Buffalo Trace when you came down here, or some of these other ones. A lot of people just go crazy over them, and there's great bottles that people walk by on the shelf on a daily.
Yeah.
There's good New York stuff, like Black Button is a big one that I'm a fan of.
Yep.
They're up in Rochester, and then Smoking Tails right down here in Phelps.
Yep.
We got a distillery, one master distiller. So Pete's place down there. I got a whole shelf down here is all Pete's stuff. So yeah, there's great stuff around.
What is it? Is it O'Bagley? Is that what it's called? O'Bagley? Down there on Seneca Lake? Have you ever tried that one?
Yeah, Bagley.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Bagley Winery.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, that one's pretty good.
Yep, had that. Myers is another one from New York that's pretty good. I've had.
I'm not familiar with
Mackenzie.
that. Mackenzie I like a lot.
Mackenzie's good.
Yeah.
I really like their rye. Their rye is really good.
Yep.
That's why I don't have a bottle of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the secret, right? Whatever you don't have is what you really
whatever I don't have, or whatever you start getting down the label on.
Yeah,
exactly. But Jason Ash comments in, says, "Hey guys."
My buddy Jason Ash.
Yeah.
He's telling me today my fertilizer's in.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I've known Jason says so with QDMA for like I said, I've been volunteering with QDMA since I was in college. I started when I was in college, so like 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
So, yep. Then we had the branch here for a little bit, and then it just got tough with, volunteers, COVID, all that. So they went through the brand change, and everybody just started getting busy,
It's hard to maintain a branch. I mean, we started a branch way back when. I think it was early 2000s. And the same thing. It's just, like you said, everybody kind of has a regular life, and you got to have a lot of discipline and dedication to go and manage that, because it's basically like operating a business.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of effort. I don't necessarily know that the people that go to those events realize how much work there is on the back end.
Yeah, the man hours and everything.
Yeah. And then,
absolutely.
And then, reporting, planning the next event, and keeping that momentum going is really the secret to having success and all that. And it's tough. It's a lot. I know, like when we did it, we were having our first kid, and then it's like, okay, I've got this distraction on top of everything else, and businesses and that type of thing, and it was just not possible. And then, like I said, everybody else had similar stuff, recently married, or own businesses, and I think you get a lot of people that are sort of entrepreneurial to begin with, that want to spearhead a branch, and which means they have other distractions that they have to contend with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the same thing. Like I said, we were all right out of college. Everybody was, free, single, bachelors, everything, whatever. And a couple of them had, a couple people had wives. I had my girlfriend, wife now. So she helped a lot with the event. She does all the sauerkraut festival stuff for Phelps. So she's big on the event planning and helped out a lot with that. Some of my buddies and their wives, but now we have kids, and with some of my friends, and they have their kids, and it just starts to get busy,
Yep.
And I can't knock them or blame them for it, because it's just life.
That's what Jason Ash says to me every time I ask him how he's doing. Busy.
Yeah.
Just so busy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shoot, I remember when, probably right about when his kids were born, was back about when we were doing the QDMA stuff together, way back in the day.
Yeah.
Because, they got to be getting 10, 11, 12 now.
Now they're helping with food plots.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
good to have that extra set of hands. Jason's fortunate, and his wife hunts too, and she contributes, which is cool. They can do that together.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, great people.
Yeah,
great people.
Yep. So, but yeah, it's it's one of those things, like you said, it's just the amount of people you meet through the industry, whether it's the real estate side of it or the hunting side of it.
Yeah.
You know, how much you could just sit down and it's like, you know, we've been friends for years and we're just sitting down here talking and just rolling right through it, just like, you know, we've been friends forever kind of thing.
Well, and it's funny too because like if you don't know somebody, you're probably only 1 or 2 steps removed from them from somebody else that knows them and probably knows them really well. You know, and that's what's cool. You get involved in these communities. Like that was one of my biggest challenges when I first started selling real estate was you're going and you're introducing yourself to these communities. I didn't know the roads. I didn't know any of the people. I didn't know the farmers. I didn't know, you know, any of the public lands that were in those areas. You know, I would maybe knew the big lakes and the, you know, the streams and that type of stuff because I'm a fisherman and banged around, but I didn't know that stuff intimately. And then, you know, I was fortunate and then I met a couple of people that kind of took me under their wing and they showed me around and gave me very generously, gave me their time and introduced me to other people. And then just by proxy, then so-and-so knows so-and-so. It's just kind of like what you're saying. And then so-and-so knows so-and-so. And then next thing you know, you're going and you're talking with a landowner or you're talking with somebody who just lives in an area. And they're and they say, oh, yeah, I was talking to, you know, Chuck up the road. And he recommended you to me. And I've never even talked to Chuck up the road, but Chuck's attorney recommended, you know, he was thinking about
worked with you guys and did this.
I had a client the other day. He calls me up and he says, hey, I got this other piece. I've sold multiple pieces of ground for him. I got this other piece. It's over here, you know, in this place. And he's telling me this story about this neighboring property. And I'm just like scratching my head. I'm like, I literally just heard this story 3 days ago. Well, my neighbors that live 2 doors down from me own a piece of land that adjoins his piece of land. And he's telling me about another neighbor behind the 2 of them. I'm like, hey man, by chance, is this property that you're describing over here? He's like, yeah, how did you know that? I'm like, is the, you know, and I start describing it to him. He's, yeah, I said, just the world gets really small really quickly, man, when you're in these communities.
Yeah, and some of these small towns and stuff like that, absolutely.
Yeah, especially, it's funny too, because like, you know, we're seeing more and more Amish and Mennonite farms and everything else. And like, you know, once you are introduced to some of them, you know where they are and what they're up to. And, you know, you meet one family and then one family will introduce you to another family and you can reference people. Oh, yeah, I was talking to Jacob and whatever else. And it's cool because you really get to build out, like we were talking about earlier, your network and get to become a part of a community. But it's hard in that initial thrust when you're trying to get in. It's like, I am totally a fish out of water here. And it says it right on my forehead. You know, and then, but after time, you just kind of work your way in, and it really works. So, and that's fun. I like that discovery phase.
And like you said, sometimes it's just like you said, getting that first, you know, introduction into the neighborhood, and then once you're kind of in the neighborhood, you're, you know, part of the neighborhood, the community, whatever it might be. But yeah, you got to make those relationships. You know, and I'm a big proponent of it. We're working with your neighbors. The best you can, because not all neighbors are good neighbors in some cases, but you know, with ground and stuff like that, we've tried to do really well, and there's neighbors we do get along really well with, and they, you know, are good neighbors, and then there's other ones that we've butted heads, and
we got those
now it's come around a little bit with some of them, but there's still other ones where it's just like, hey man, you didn't shoot us straight in the beginning, you know, you kind of lost that piece of it. So but yeah, it's all about the relationships you make, forge, whatever you want to call them. Going forward with it.
I'd rather be on the positive side of things than the negative.
You
know? So, but unfortunately, sometimes that's just not possible with some personalities. I had a woman call me. You know, a lot of how we procure activity is through postcard mailers for our brokerage, and I had a woman call me, reading me the Riot Act over the weekend, just
for sending you a mailer.
Oh man, cussing me up and down. And
I'm not ready to sell. I don't want to sell.
Not even that. Oh no, I was the worst human being ever because I sent her a mailer or two. You know, and it's just like okay. Okay, all you had to do was say, hey, can you remove me from your list? You know. No big deal. But you know. Different strokes for different folks there. But
you're gonna always run into, like you said, some folks that are just the wrong kind of personality for, you know, what you got, and that's part of it.
No doubt.
But yeah, and a lot of it with, that I try to tell, folks as buyers is, when you're working on, maybe a buyer's side, looking at a piece of property, um, you got to have kind of an open mind. It's a negotiation. It still is a negotiation in any aspect of it. So there's hopefully some form of give and take on both sides in a negotiation.
Yeah.
But that's the big thing I try to, get to people right out of the gate with this is, it's a negotiation, because some people think that it's priced too high or, they're way off and, they want to come in low. And it's just like, well, we got to look at what's fair market, and usually it's a lot closer to where it's priced at than a lot of people think. And it's what the market's bearing, but you can't come out the gate and it's listed for $100,000, let's say, and they're like, well, we're at 60. It's just like, you want to not have any shot at this because, that's kind of where it might go here.
Right.
And you guys got to be ready for that. If you really like it, you got to be ready to jump on it too, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I have come to realize in doing all this is, guys like you and I that do this every day, right, is we are so initiated to this process. And so as a result, we're sort of callous to it. Not in a bad way, but like it's what we do every single day. The vast majority of people are only going to do 2, maybe 3 real estate transactions, some only 1 real estate transaction their entire life. So they don't know sort of the rules of engagement. Yeah. And so as a result, like you're saying, they come in and they're at $60,000, 60% of asking price in this particular example. Man, I've never sold a property at 60% of asking price. Yeah. Our average is around 92% of asking price, right? If we price them right. Sometimes we have people that push us up and whatever else. But with that being said, it's just like, and I just recently had an offer, came in at 67% of asking price, and I it was not my buyer, meaning I wasn't representing them, but there was someone that came directly to me. And I said, hey, this is kind of low. I by law, I have to present this offer, of course, but I want you to know, if you're interested in this, like, we might have scorched earth right out of the gate, because some people they have that personality. And to your point, sometimes they really need to temper that expectation, and they need to hear that from somebody else, so that way they have the opportunity to think, because they're just not as initiated as we are, and they think that might be acceptable, and in some cases it may be, but in the vast majority of others, it's probably not going to fly. And you kind of are always dancing that fine line of working within the confines of that individual personality on the seller side, let's say, and are you going to offend them, and they completely shut down. And fortunately, I don't see that very often, but it definitely happens. And I mean, I have seen it, and some people are they turn it right off, and they're like, I won't even engage with that person at all. The fortunate 100%. Thing, back to my previous statement, is we still have to present every offer. So
by law, absolutely.
I always encourage people like, well, I have to.
I'm just letting you know.
And we might get them to turn the corner if we come in more reasonable. And so exchanging that dialogue is important.
But I've had a particular one I sold up in Wayne County. It was the same thing. It was, like you said, probably around 65% of asking price. They came in with it, and the seller, who was my client, dual agent too, so I can't tell them to take, not to take. That all can muddy stuff a little bit in some aspect, because there's different do's and don'ts. You lose, some of your obligations because you have to just be the neutral party. I just told him, I said, I will present it to the seller, but I'll just tell you right now, being on both sides of this, if it goes south, I can't tell you what to offer him either, but I would just say you should look at it a little bit better. And he put in 3 different offers, escalating it every time, and even when he came up within 10% of asking price, landowner said no.
Guy just shut down.
Because it burnt it. It burnt the bridge right out the gate. And the guy's like, I don't want to deal with it.
But the worst part is he lost out, most likely, right? I mean,
the seller? No,
right.
The seller ended up we ended up getting about 5 to 6% over asking.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it worked out. But again, it's one of those too, where are you at 60% of asking price 7 days on the market, or are you at 60% 300 days on the market.
Right.
It's, you know, you got to also read the room a little bit too with,
Yeah.
you know, what you're doing with those situations.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it, to
Yeah.
read the room.
Yeah.
And people's, as the saying goes, motivation
Mm-hmm.
definitely changes with time.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Tax time of the year can be a big piece of it.
School taxes.
School
right?
tax time of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as they're talking about doing a $55 million improvement project where our property sits right now. So I'm sure the school taxes are going to be lovely going forward with that.
Be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Kids
The money's there.
Smart,
the money's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the taxpayers won't be burdened by it at all. Is
Yeah.
what the town hall meeting or whatever kind of came out of it. My mom went to it. Was talking about it. She's like, yeah, they explained it really well. I'm like, yeah, they towed it up. They towed it up as a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
need this football stadium or
whatever. Yeah, well, that's another thing going into it too, is they're already saying it's a $300 million bigger balloon than they thought it was going to be with the cost of the Bill Stadium stuff. So with escalating, you know, material costs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's $55 million project now, but when they get through it in 2 years or whatever the punchline is for it, is it going to be closer to 65, 70? You know, it's a lot of money for a small town school district.
Yeah.
You know, place that probably graduates 70 kids, maybe 80. I don't know what Lyons is. When I went to Clyde, which was right down the road, we graduated. We were the biggest class in like the last 10 years, and we were at 67.
Oh my gosh.
So they're not big school districts.
Yeah.
And my wife comments, and she must be tuning in upstairs. She said, "Not taxes again."
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're probably boring people to death now.
Yeah,
we're talking about taxes.
Yeah.
Get back on the bourbon.
Yeah, no, I'm sure my dad and my mom, they tune in too, and I'm sure my dad's just going, that taxes. Yeah. And he still, it's his property. It's not, I say our property. It's my family's property. He pays the taxes on it, so we'll see it someday that it'll be my bill to pay, but not right now. For now, it's his bill to pay. But if it escalates between now and then, it's still going to be my bill at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Let it go on the internet back to deer or something. All right. Yes, dear. Yeah. So, but yeah, we were talking food plots before this, and you were saying you had some trouble with nut sedge in your food plots this year specifically.
Yeah.
So
I put in some screening mid-June. And I tried to put in another clover plot, or I wanted to expand one of my clover plots. Just did my normal routine, kill, till, and, you know, put stuff out, cultipack, and germination was good right out of the gate, and then boom, I mean, it's bad.
Just hammered
in the one spot. Yeah. The spots where I seeded pretty heavy in my screening seems to have outcompeted it's still there, but it's got more height now. It's starting to shade it out and everything else. But that clover didn't stand a chance. Yeah. So my only hope is that next spring I can try and work through it and get it under control and you know, just try and burn it back, you know, and get the ground cooled off enough where the grass doesn't have a chance, and the clover will just shade it. But yeah, it's brutal stuff. Yeah. That and the other one that we've had a little trouble with this year is dock. You know, curly dock and broadleaf dock. Yeah, it just popped up, and man, that's another one that's really, really tough to treat. And we can't get some of the chemicals that we need to whack it.
2,4-D does a pretty good job on it. Okay. For curly dock. Won't do a lot with nut sedge because it's a broadleaf killer. Actually, funny story. My dad dumped about a whole jug of 2,4-D on nut sedge back when we were trying to control it. He's like, I sprayed it really good. And I was just like, what'd you spray it with? He's like, 2,4-D. I'm like, it's a broadleaf. You gotta read the label, identify the weeds. Which is fine. We got sedge hammer, which is what I would recommend, what we talked about for nut sedge. Spot treat it. If you can work out of getting out of tillage for a couple of years so you can get that patch under control or whatever you want to call it. Because like we were talking about, you know, you had a farmer friend that's got it all over through his fields.
Yeah.
Conventional tillage just spreads that stuff like wildfire.
It's bad.
Same thing if you got like reed canary grass. It's another very rhizobious spreader and stuff like that. A little bit easier to kill sometimes than nut sedge, but sedge hammer for nut sedge, curly dock, 2,4-D glide or a 2,4-D glide hybrid, 2 quarts acre glide 1-ish quarts per acre 2,4-D. If you're spraying over the whole plot, it's good for a burn down, but it has a pre-plant residual for 2 to 3 weeks, I'd say, with the 2,4-D. Or the other thing that we found really well with spot treating it is about a 3% solution right when the flower, and they're not very showy flowers on dock. It's like almost like a little white greenish flower. If you hit it with a 3% spot treatment, meaning you're spraying just individual plants in a plot and it's not completely overrun, we had real good success with that as well. Killing it right at that specific time frame.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are pretty problem weeds that a lot of people, deal with on a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's going to be one of those things that we'll probably see more of, here, just based upon the conversations that I'm having with people.
Yeah.
It's not everywhere, but it sure has the opportunity to spread.
And a lot of it's, timing with it. We got some more dock in some of our plots that we had a pretty good handle on, but we were a little late planting last year, so we mowed, spread some seed. Then obviously, once you spread seed, fresh tilled ground blows up, especially with stuff like curly dock or, like we're saying, nut sedge. But biggest thing, like I tell folks, is just identify your weeds properly and then figure out the best course of action to get ahead of them. And that might mean you don't plant the sexy bag of turnips this year. You go back to buckwheat and cereal grains for a couple years and get them back under control, where you can start working that other stuff back into your program. And like I tell folks all the time, on the consulting side of it for the property management stuff, it's not what you plant, it's where you plant it that is more important. If it's an unpressured, good located food source, it is much more important than what you're putting in the ground.
Sure.
So as long as it's a good, essentially stress-free environment for them, that's the best game in town.
Yeah.
If you got a bunch of neighbors, especially if your food plots and your property as a whole are unpressured, it doesn't matter if I'm putting cereal grain out there or if I'm putting clover out there or turnips or corn or whatever. It's based on the location of it is why, you kind of stack the odds a little bit. Some people say unfairly, a couple of my neighbors say unfairly on it, but it's just because of the way we hunt it and the way we attack it.
Yeah.
So we do work hard at it, and it's been a long road to haul. I mean, we've had the property since 2007, so it's not like, we've had a lot of time to figure it out and mess up. But it's getting to be the point where it works pretty well, like a well-oiled machine now. And, both me and my dad fortunately tagged out last year on the piece with, 4.5-year-old or better bucks.
Yeah.
Off of like 200 acres. So, I mean, and the neighbors killed their fair share like they always do as well. But, it's just getting your piece, finding the right piece and then laying it out right. And, the food plots are just a little bonus.
I think, to your point, like you got to hunt a little bit more defensively and sort of pay attention, especially once you get into gun season, right? Pay 100%. Attention to what your neighbors are doing and their behaviors. And like you were saying, like sometimes that just shows itself over time. You'll start seeing, I have my consistency patterns, things that I have stands that I really want to sit at certain times of year for very specific reasons. Well, the neighbors are doing the same exact thing, whether it's, that's where I always sit opening day because they don't have a strategy. They don't have a win strategy. They don't whatever. That's where I sit.
That's my stand.
Day. That's my stand, or they have a specific thing that they do on specific wins. And the sooner that you're able to recognize that, you can plan accordingly. Like I won't sit certain spots at certain times of year because I know my neighbors are generally here, there, and wherever else. And, as a result, they just booger up the travel patterns and whatever else. And I'm very much of a belief that a lot of why the deer activity sort of titrates down after opening day of deer season for a little while isn't necessarily because of folks going in and out of the woods as much as it is just the amount of scent that's blowing around in the timber. And as a result, they're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to wait until dark when the scent's not here.
Yep.
It's not as much about being bumped.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Or they go to those specific pockets where there is no pressure,
right.
Exactly. Wind, stress getting bumped off a piece, whatever it might be. And the deer that are older, and typically those bucks that we are targeting are the ones that know those spots because they've gone to them before. Yep. So, but yeah, I try to set my pieces up, the ones I consult on and my own and stuff, that as the season goes, the hunting almost gradually gets better.
Yep.
Because of the strategic breakdown of, like you said, I'm not hunting over here because my neighbor hunts there, kind of the same situation as me, where maybe I'll even hunt adjacent to that, knowing the way he's going to hunt it or blow his wind or whatever, and maybe that'll work out more beneficial for me too.
Right.
So there's a lot of different scenarios that are always going in my head, and like you said, specific days, specific times of the year. The big whiteboard over there, that's my buddies, I'll call it my serial killer board. That's hunting bucks on specific days on a property, killing them 1 year to the day.
Yeah. I remember you were talking about that in a video that you had.
And we killed 3 of those 4 last year on 1 year rolls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's crazy how much they slot in, year to year to year like that. And it was something that I kind of found by accident, with actually it's upstairs, the big six I killed. I kind of lucked into it accidentally. I just happened to click in my head. I was looking through pictures and stuff, and old pictures, looking for a specific buck that I was chasing that year. And I'm like thumbing through pictures and looking at it, and I'm just like, huh. I said, every year, and I started going back years, and I started going back, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, every year on this date in that hardwoods, there's a good buck chasing does. Every year on this day. And it clicked in my head, and I go, this is up like 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm like, wonder if there's something to that. And then that time rolled around, and then come to find out, it was one day before, at this point, probably 6 years ago, I killed my first buck out of that hardwoods, that same 2-day window.
Yeah.
And it's just like everything started clicking, adding up, and I started going back, looking at pictures. I got stuff logged, specific deer year to year. Start logging it back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it starts to really connect down.
Yeah.
Especially once they get 3, and you can start getting like 3, 4, 5, 6. If you can get them into those older age classes or chase a deer that long, they get really habitual where they go certain times of the year. But even like I said, hot specific doe groups during November 10th or 9th or whatever it might be. I might have a spot that I say I should go sit this spot if I got the right wind and conditions.
Yeah.
And that's where you got to bounce a little bit and go, ooh, I should hunt there on the 9th, but I can't. So it's like you start looking at what else fits, and you go, okay, so ours is broke down kind of into zones. So I'll still hunt that same zone where that buck was. Yep. On that day a year ago.
Yep.
And, may not be where I had him specifically on camera or a standing counter or whatever, but I might be hunting 200-300 yards from that spot or whatever in a different stand location that works for the wind or the approach or whatever.
Right.
But
he's probably likely using a topographical feature in that area anyhow, and it just, it's just like, they're not stationary unless they got a doe pinned down. They're moving through an area. So like you're saying, like work that zone. That definitely makes sense to me. I mean, I have a specific spot on the place that we hunt where if the wind is coming out of a certain direction during this certain week of the year, I know what I'm doing, and I know how long I'm doing it for.
Gotcha.
Because it's just so consistent, because they're coming in, working the downwind side of a bedding area usually. And I'm not like a super big proponent of a deer's always walking with his nose into the wind. I know a lot of guys say that, and a lot of articles have been written about it. I don't think that that's true.
I've seen them walk nose to the wind, nose to their back, crosswind.
It's same here. And I think a lot of it depends upon the time of year and what their objective is. But I do believe during the rut, when procreation is on the line, and your one shot at getting laid is on the line, they're going to work the wind because it's their best opportunity to find a mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that particular context, like I was saying, this one spot, if the wind is doing this one thing, like if it's actually specifically out of the southeast, which obviously is generally pretty rare that time of year, but if it is, or if it blows east in general, this spot just, I mean, it is just like a traffic pattern, man. Just back and forth and back and forth. They'll just work this bottom, and you'll see the same buck going up, get to the end, come right back, you know, and then there'll be other bucks that come in, you know, and it's just this one sort of hub, and they hammer it. I mean, I'm surprised they don't wear the ground out.
Right.
You know, it's awesome. But unfortunately, to your point, like you just situationally have to work with.
You're getting that magic wheat, and you can hit a southeast, and you're just like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. But if it's a southwest and it's close to that area, I got another spot to accommodate. If it's a northwest, it's still within a couple hundred yards. I got another spot to accommodate it. And that's the thing, like trying to find those opportunities and just think outside the box a little bit. You know, that's definitely been, I feel like, one of my keys. I'm the terrible rut hunter, so I have to find my success at other times of year, which is why I put so much emphasis on food and food plots and that type of thing. But, you know, I am good at thinking outside of the box, and I'm really good about being low pressure. You know, I'm really disciplined about the wind. I mean, I won't take any chances with that. You know, I don't care. I run an ozonics and do all that stuff, and you know, run ozone, but I think there's a lot of people that think that that's foolproof. I'm not one of them. It's a tool. And it helps.
Absolutely.
It gives me an assistance. But it is not foolproof. And
I've yet to find something that's going to beat their nose 100% other than the wind being in your favor. And even like I talked to folks too about, you know, looking at specific spots, kind of relating this to the wind. I call them wrong wind spots, where you can cheat it with a thermal or cheat it with something like that. You know, in places where, you know, folks, you know, wouldn't even think to do it because they're on this side of a, you know, hill face or something, specifically maybe east facing, west wind, you'd think it'd be blowing right at the deer. But with that morning thermal rise, if you got bluebird skies coming, sun hitting the woods, it's going to pull it right up and out like an elevator chute.
I think the other thing that people don't really fully think their way through is what wind does on topography sometimes too. Like it's come down on the hillside, it'll come over. When we have one spot, actually not far from the one I was just talking about, the southeast. If the wind is coming out of the west, if it comes straight out of the west, it comes down this hill. Because of the way the topography is, it'll actually take that wind, it hits the bottom, and it shoots
right out
of the south. You're bulletproof in that spot. I mean, it is unbelievable on a west wind because all the bedding is on the east side from where you are, and just by chance,
it's the bottom of the funnels.
It's just, I discovered it one time. I was, I don't even know what I was doing, and I was down in there with a puffer, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why is it going like this? And
it's following it like water.
It was amazing, you know. And so, you know, I mentioned that Neil Doherty earlier. Like, Neil's been a friend of mine for a really long time, and that was always his thing. Like, you know, using
wind map
bubbles to wind map, and you know, little wind indication things. And he would make these crazy maps and whatever else, and that's really where I learned that and started thinking about it. And I've seen it just play out time and time again. I have another spot where you would think on this one specific wind you'd be in the clear, and it never works out that way. It just always finds a way to swirl and back at in there, you know. And it's just
and you find those spots too. You get into them and you're just like, man, this will be perfect. You get back in there and you maybe put a sit in it or whatever, and you're just like, the wind's perfect for what I thought, and then maybe it ends up being good for a different wind. That's kind of how I found that one east-facing spot that I've killed a couple deer out of. It was almost, I went in there that morning, it was supposed to be an east wind. It wasn't. It was still more southwest, but I'm in there, and the deer are downwind of me, but they're not. It's all elevator shooting over the top, and however many 100 yards before it settles, you know. Way out over the top of any deer that I'm within bow range of, or even hunting in that scenario, it's like, well, this is like perfect. So, and actually, if you do get like a southeast wind in that kind of a morning spot, like you said, it almost bashes into the hill and rolls back kind of funny with it, because it almost hits too good into the hill. Instead of coming over and getting lifted up, it comes in, hits, and then kind of
swirls
in the bottom. Exactly.
It just turns like a washer.
Exactly. So,
which is good in some instances and bad in others.
You know? But you get specific spots that you just can't hunt, you know. or other ones that they just work. And sometimes it's sitting in them and dropping milkweed or a puffer or whatever you're doing. And I'm a huge milkweed guy.
Yep.
I've always been milkweed. My dad used it forever. I had gallon Ziploc bags.
Yeah.
Oh, I got different pods of it all around the property here where me and my wife live. I got little pods of it that I don't mow.
Yeah.
Because I can just go out there and pick a half a dozen of them and whatever. And I actually use those old school change purses.
Yeah.
And you just pop it and pull out what you need. And if it's empty, I'll grab another one and fill those up. And they make good stocking stuffers. If you got any other hunters.
Yeah.
But yeah, you still get them on Amazon. It's about the only place you can find those little rubber change purses.
That's funny. My grandmother had one of those. She had her change in it.
Yeah.
Bringing back memories.
They work.
Yeah.
But not just for the change. So yeah. So just about right on that hour line. So want to give you a second to talk about how folks could reach out to you if they're interested in it. I know, like you said, that we're both in real estate, but at the same time, you might have somebody that's selling and I got a buyer, you got a property listed, I'd like you to just put all your information out there for folks too.
Yeah. I'm not going to drop my phone number or anything like that, but you can find me at the Whitetail Properties website. I think it's whitetailproperties.com, and I think it's /Tim-Kent. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, just my name. If I can help anybody, please let me know, and appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun.
No, I enjoyed it. You brought good bourbon. I can't complain either. So, and like we said, it was a good conversation, and like we'd been, friends for years, so to speak. Just hit the ground running, right in conversation, and
you were one of the first people that called me. Yeah, I appreciate it. Gave me some sage advice at that point too.
Yeah, I don't know how long you been doing.
With my fourth year.
Fourth year.
Yeah.
So I've had my license 6 years, so I was still pretty new at the time, but. It's and just when you think you've seen it all, you haven't.
Oh. No, I've had some doozies in my time, man. I've like called our brokerage and been like, so let me explain this to you, and they're like, really?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever had that. We're gonna have to dig deep.
Yep. Figure out this or figure out that or the broker I'm with, like Keenan, he's been in it for decades. Really, really well versed in it. I bring him a problem or something, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I think I remember doing one like that back in the '80s. Let me dig a little bit and think about it. Okay, yeah, why don't we do it like this? Okay, we'll do it like that, Mike. Thanks. Perfect. Yeah. Or what? Like you said, let me paint you a little picture here. You tell me what you think.
Yeah. Conservation easements and estates are where we see our craziest.
Gets little gray areas and fuzzy spots
weird stuff that
shared right of ways.
Yeah,
those can get funny too.
Yep.
And sometimes people don't even know they're there till they get back in the deed when they pull the deed on, like you said, a piece that might be the only piece of real estate they ever sell in their life.
Yep.
And it's something that they didn't even know about was deeded way back in the 30s or 40s or whatever that was written in there that there's a shared right of way or somebody owns a right of way, a utility company or something, even though they never used it, they still own it.
Yep.
So it makes flags in gray areas if people are building a house, let's say, on a piece or something like that, or wanting to build pond, all sorts of different stuff come up. The list could go on and on. If you could think about it, it probably could happen.
Or legacy handshake deals that were not written into a deed.
But somebody's got it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Or somebody, I've had people have first right of refusals basically on a napkin. And it goes like, they hear they're selling it, and then all of a sudden it comes up to the surface, and it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that happened? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, we'll take it to the attorneys and see what they say.
Yeah.
Because we're not lawyers either, so
no.
a lot of those questions kind of get, worked with the attorneys in some cases to figure out the best way to handle them.
Absolutely.
But that's also where you get somebody that's first in land, because somebody like, that you might be working with from another brokerage, a other name brokerage that does primarily residential doesn't deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
It's stuff that we deal with a lot more. or timber leases or gas leases that might be on a property. All that stuff is just stuff that is, they have their own, speciality. And when it comes to residential stuff, I don't do a whole lot of it.
Right.
More of it's, raw land, recreational farm ground. So some of the residential stuff is a little, rusty for me sometimes.
Sure.
So, just because it's not something that I'm really doing.
Yep.
But,
makes sense.
But yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Tim for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
And hope to have you on again soon sometime.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
Maybe give an in-season update and maybe talk about what deer we're chasing or how the food plots are panning out. Like we said, we both got seed in the ground, so right now it's fingers crossed.
Yeah, so far my germination looks good.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Just keep praying for a little more warmth and a little more rain.
Yeah, I was out there pulling a couple cameras today before calling hours in the episode this afternoon, and a couple of the seeds that I put out this weekend, a couple of the radishes I found were starting to split.
Yeah.
So I'm like, perfect. Got the little drink of rain, enough to pop them.
Yeah.
I'm liking it. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys all next time. Like I said, we're not really on a regular schedule right now with Wednesdays or whatever. It's just when folks are available and stuff's going on, we'll pop on and bring you guys content. And it's always available on YouTube after the fact, the Bullhorn app, or you can go back and watch them on my Facebook page too. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you all next time down here at the bar.